Hi, everyone. This is the Code Chris Show. I am your host, Code Chris. Today, we get to cover a number of exciting topics that overlap with technology and film. We get to talk about the realities that Black Mirror presents to us. We talk about the future of re-edits in the film world. And my guest today reviews films without spoiling them. Please put your hands together for the host of Movies and Munchies, Chris. Hi, Chris. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to talk about all the things we have to cover with film. But real quick, could you tell us a little bit more about your YouTube channel and the things that you cover there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I do movie and TV show reviews on YouTube. I do my best to stay away from spoilers. And really, I come at this as just a regular guy who enjoys watching content, going to the movies when they were open, when they're kind of beginning to open, binging things on my couch. And I just want to know, for me, I want to let you know, hey, is it worth my time checking out? Because there is so much stuff out there, but then very little time that we have. And I come as my perspective is as a dad, as a husband, as just a regular guy. And you know what? I am, like I try and say, I am a semi pro couch potato. And that means I am aspiring to become a full time couch potato, and which that just would be self-sustaining, where I get to watch movies and TV shows all the time and do that for a living. That's not the case yet, but that's okay.
All right. Well, I mean, soon, soon. Actually,
Absolutely.
I need to thank you, man, because spoilers is one of my biggest pet peeves, and it's really because I usually am looking for a channel where it's like, listen, I want to know if I can see this, if I can watch this, but I also am very aware of movie reviews tend to have spoilers, and I don't want, and I figure plots out too easily to be like, no, I already saw it in the trailer. I know it's what's gonna happen.
That's exactly true. Yeah, I try and stay away from most trailers also because I don't want it to be ruined for me. And so
Mhm.
I don't want to do that to anybody that happens to watch one of my reviews. I mean, that's some of the greatest part of film and TV is when there's something hidden that just hasn't been revealed yet, and you're working your hardest to just figure it
Yes.
out. And it's awesome, yay when we do it, when we figure it out, or I feel even better when they fooled me and I didn't figure it out. But there's nothing worse than going in unexpected and having somebody just drop this bomb on you, like, oh, well, that was a whole, uh, oh, man, I wanted to
Actually,
see
this
it.
this this actually brings us to like a very like it's a common issue I have on YouTube. I'm on YouTube all the time for like background listening to things, and like I said, the spoilers is a big issue. And you do a lot of Netflix reviews, right? And that has the whole binging model, and that's something where with Stranger Things, with these bingeable shows, where I'm like, I kind of feel this sort of question of uh, has it kind of ruined the experience a little bit, because essentially you can't talk about, did you see the last episode of Stranger Things? No, no, no. It's, did you see the whole season of Stranger Things? Because where did you last leave off? Okay, well, we can't talk yet.
I think you're right. I mean, it's a whole new viewing experience now because, I think, and it really came about mostly with Netflix and how they changed the game by giving us entire seasons all at once. And so we could just become, we sit down, be swallowed by our couch and watch, I don't know, 3 to 8 hours in a row, and it comes up with that little reminder. Are you still watching? Yeah, stop judging me. Just let me see what I'm watching. Um, but yeah, for discussing things amongst friends or family or anything like that, you do have to be really careful because when it's a binge session, I mean, everybody is on a different journey. Whereas when, gosh, I think like Lost, when that first came out on TV, you were chomping at the bit for what came at the next episode, which you had to wait a whole week. And then the writer strike happened, and oh my gosh, we have to wait even longer than that, and just things like that, that the anticipation is not there as much, I think, with the binging. But I go back and forth. I'm 50-50 on some shows. I would love to have episodic and see
Mhm.
them week to week. Most of the time, though, I have been just, you know, I don't even know the right word. Uh, I am,
Reviewing,
huh?
like you're rewatching, or
Well, just rewired, I think, by Netflix to be like, no,
oh,
this is the way that that we consume media now.
well, This Is the Way is actually a pretty good example of a contrast because when like Disney Plus said like, oh, the Mandalorian's gonna be a weekly thing, everyone's like, ah, no, they're gonna lose the Netflix. But I gotta say, I first of all, I too am a father, so busy life. I actually have really started to appreciate on HBO and on Disney Plus these episodic things where it's like, well, I feel like if I missed one episode, I can catch up next week. And you also have the opportunity to discuss it with your friends and family. Like, oh, did you see what happened? What do you think? That water cooler, time I feel is kind of missed with the big narratives.
I agree. I think we lose some of the event that happens around an episodic show by having the, you know, just all at once. I do think though that sometimes some shows would work better as a binge all at once because maybe they don't, you know, they're shorter viewing. Like I think to
Mhm.
Servant on Apple Plus, I came late to the party to that and didn't watch the first season until it had just reached the end. And so I binged it all. And I think had I waited on that one week to week, I would have been a little bit more disappointed. And it was tough watching or season two week to week like that. But when you say, you know, The Mandalorian, that is an event. As much as I wanted to see another episode, it made me crave, and I kind of looked forward to Friday
Yeah.
night when it would come on, you know. And so I, that's where I'm wishy washy on. Okay, if the show warrants it, I'm totally down for an
Hmm.
episodic release, but make sure that the content is worth it. Make sure that each episode you're really giving me something that's going to hold me and make it worth my time to wait a whole nother week before I sit down and carve out some more time. Because otherwise, I could just sit down and, I mean, in aggregate, it's still the same amount of time, but it's one portion right now that you know, if I
Hmm.
binge it and I'm good to go.
Well, actually, something that I haven't really seen in the States, but like I know in Europe they do it, where like have you seen Sherlock?
I have.
Right. And so they have this kind of episodes, but they're the length of a film, but it's a self-contained episodic thing, and they do have that larger narrative across, what are shorter seasons. But I actually would love to see like, some of the streamings provide something like that, you know.
I totally agree. Yeah, I love British crime dramas, and more often than not, they do tend to be around that 90-minute ish range. Now, you may only have 4 or 6 episodes in a season, but I feel like I've been to a real event at that point, and I don't mind waiting another week because I've watched a whole movie right here.
And so actually, what are your thoughts then? Speaking about like the event, what is your thoughts with sort of the direction that the film industry is kind of headed, right? So obviously now you have like, celebrities wanting to get to the small screen, right? The streaming services, right? Because that's where the action is. But also like, going to a movie theater is a nice event, but like especially now, like, HBO and Disney are doing this thing where it's being released both on TV and in the cinema. Do you think like, hey, that's the future, or what are your thoughts kind of around that idea of what the movie going cinema experience is going to be in the future, if there is one?
I certainly think it's going to be different. I have been to the theater twice since they have reopened in my area, and that is just recently.
Mm-hmm.
And last night I went and saw A Quiet Place Part Two,
Ooh.
and so seeing it in the theater is it is definitely an experience. It's certainly different than watching it at home. Um, you know, going to the theater provides its own challenges even before COVID and lockdown and everything. You know, the world changed. You have rude moviegoers. You have people who don't observe silence. They're not there to, you know, to watch
Mm-hmm.
the movie. They're there to give commentary on it, whatever that happens to be. Um, but it's still that, you know, seeing it, the grandeur of it, and getting that just earth shaking sound that you can get. Um, I love I love seeing that in the theater. Now I've got to
A-
say
and
though,
and and if I could just interrupt, I was gonna say also there's that audience because if you think of like the big events like Endgame was one where it's like if you're with a crowd, you're all there together and you're experiencing something special.
you're absolutely right. Yeah, and there is something about that collective experience, whether you're fans or whether you're watching a horror movie, and something happens and everybody has that moment all at once. I mean that is that is something that can't be shared when you're watching it on the small screen. I mean, it's kind of shared with the people that are around you, but it's certainly just minimized to a great degree. I think though that for me at least, this past, gosh, it's been almost a year and a half since in my area in California, that the theaters were shut down. That my behaviors have changed, though.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm not as apt to go to the theater as I once was. Now, before COVID happened, I was in the theater 2 to 3 times a week. Whether that was for screenings or for just, I didn't get a screening. There wasn't a screening in my area. So I purchased tickets for a day of when it released and going to see it. And so I mean, that's a huge time commitment, all of that. But as much as I love the theater experience, being at home sometimes and in the comfort of I don't have to go anywhere. I can
Mm-hmm.
order it, or even for some of press screenings, I get them sent to me. And so I can just watch them in the comfort of my home at my leisure on my timeline, and it fits within my regular work schedule and then my review schedule that I have. And so that is kind of nice. And so I find myself, as things are opening back up and screenings are becoming more in person, and more and more theaters are showing newer films and the new releases, I'm kind of torn. Is like, well, I used to give my money so freely to do that.
Yeah,
Now I'm a little more. I'm judging it a little bit more, and maybe that will open up as time goes on. That I will be more and more willing to venture out more often. Um,
sure.
time. I think time is really going to be the key factor in that, in determining the comfort level.
Yeah, I was kind of in shock because I was like, wait a minute, you used to go that often and now you don't, and and I think for somebody like you, right, semi-pro couch potato, I mean, to go from that level of movie going experience, just consistency, down to in the future, don't think it's gonna be that often. That's really eye opening. I thought I went, at a reasonable amount, but yeah, you're definitely winning.
Well, I have to remind myself too that I watch at a totally different rate than most normal people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people don't consume the media at the rate or just in the volume that I do, and thus my family then does also. Um, but so that's a reminder that I have to do whenever I feel like a pressure or something, like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. I'm like, you know what? Take a breath, slow it down just a little bit. The rest of the world is not as nuts as you are, meaning me.
Yeah. Okay, I gotcha. Well, so something that happens all the time in films, especially like franchises, right? Episode one, two, three, right? And now they have these cinematic universes going on, and because of contracts, because of all the politics or whatever, there's a lot of recasting that keeps going on. So, what are your thoughts about using deepfakes or AI to basically take those people who are in the later films and basically take their face and put it on the previous actor of the previous film and basically recast the previous film, right? So, for a good example is Mark Ruffalo was recast as the new Incredible Hulk, right? But previous in that in that cinematic universe, Edward Norton was originally the Incredible Hulk. So, yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, what would it be like to kind of get that extra, like, oh, I'd like to watch all these films together and feel like it's the same person's journey. What do you think about that?
I would be against that. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't. I think things change. Sometimes recasts have to happen, and I think for the most part, like in if I'm taking the Incredible Hulk and the Mark Ruffalo that
Example.
example, um, Edward Norton and then even Eric Bana, they gave their own performance. They had their own flair to it. It was their movie, you know. And so I think it's a discredit to the actor to then
Hmm.
take somebody else and rewrite over them, um, just to make it fit within a larger narrative that happened to come years later. Um, but when we talk about like some of the deep fakes or the AI, like I think to Rogue One, and
Hmm.
you know where we see Princess Leia. Okay, that makes sense. Using that, doing, um, gosh, even what Grandma Moff Tarkin. Oh, talking is hard.
And that
Uh,
was in the Uncanny Valley one, right? I mean, that's kind of one that kind of sticks out. I would not mind if they do another pass on that later.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, sometimes, I mean, sometimes in small things, I think it's okay to add an actor back in. Maybe. I mean, I say that there's a lot of caveats that go through my mind,
Hmm.
um, because an actor that has come before or that you know that they were cast in there, I mean that's their role. You know, think to Iron Man, the original Iron Man. um oh goodness, the actor's name is has
Robert Downey
lost.
Jr.
No, well, for Rhodey, um
Oh,
he was
ch- uh,
Don
oh no,
Cheadle comes later and
right,
is
Don Cheadle's
there
second one.
all
Uh,
for the rest of the MCU except for that. And so that would be weird to go back into Iron Man and to replace him with Don Cheadle. Um,
mm,
I think it is what it is. You know what I mean? I think at some point we kind of have to just go, okay, you know what? Either they didn't work out, or you know, for future castings, maybe we figure out a way um, to move forward or to explain it or to just not talk about it and whatever. It just happened. This is the way it goes. Because I think sometimes what could happen is they could get a little crazy with that. You know, like to think about the upcoming sequel to Black Panther. There,
yeah,
don't don't create a CGI Chadwick Boseman. You know, if you have some footage of him that you could incorporate in here, that's really him.
sure.
Okay, if it's done tastefully and it works and it helps to preserve his legacy, but
Mm.
don't use
CGI
his
him in.
image, yeah,
Hmm.
just to profit off of it. And I think at that point, writers and studios and producers, everything, they just have to get more creative.
Hmm.
And I think the fans understand that. And I think really, I mean, especially depending on how iconic it is, you could risk losing a fan base by changing somebody.
That's pretty fair. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I do think I did see with Black Panther, they made a point of saying that they're not going to be doing that out of the very reasons you mentioned, out of respect. Okay, cool. So kind of along that same line, and you kind of hinted at it with examples from like Rogue One and stuff. So you have franchises or just sequels where the actor takes place, 1 year later, 2 years later, right? Obviously, I mean, especially like if it's a younger person, right? Like we're using the MCU a lot, but like the Tom Holland as Spider-Man, like that guy's gonna age pretty quick, and he can't be in high school for the next 12 years. It takes 4 years to make a film. So what about helping keep somebody at a certain age?
Well, so like de-aging or just using
Mm-hmm.
the technology, yeah. Um, gosh, I honestly,
Interesting,
I
huh?
haven't seen it done convincingly or well. Um, you know, to be able to do that. I think to gosh, what was the movie? It just came out recently. The Irishman. It was Martin
Oh, that's
Scorsese
actually
on,
mm,
you know, on Netflix, and
that's a really
you
good example.
have these amazing actors. And I understand for the time you take them back, you're showing some of this prequel, or not prequel, you're showing this big timeline. You know, we have present, but you're also showing the past. And so obviously these guys are older, and so you have to make them less wrinkly, less gray,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things. um for me, the digital de-aging, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
I think it becomes a little sketchy at that point. I would rather see, try and use practical effects, try to use a lot of makeup, or the way to, to do that, use some camera tricks, something like that, to, if you need to do that, to de-age somebody a little bit. But then if you go the other route, when actors are getting older, I think some of that is we see in the movie industry, and I think it happens mostly with actresses, is that there it becomes a stigma to look a little older, to
Mm,
have some wrinkles, to have some age lines. And reality is we all get that way, and so to have some of these actresses who, or actors for that matter, who
mhm.
refuse to have any work done, that they just, what, I'm going to age, and this is how I'm aging, I'm going to do my best to keep in shape, and just to
Sure.
minimize some of the effects of that. But I think, again, we honor those actors and actresses by allowing them to age gracefully, to naturally, and to not take it away. I mean, I think, you know, I,
As soon as you brought up the Irishman, I was like, man, that's a really good point because uh, the effects didn't bother me as much, but there was a particular shot where I forget the name of all the characters, but basically Al Pacino is like roughing up a guy, and it's clear that it is not like a very strong young man who's kicking this guy down. Like it felt, different, and that actually did take me out real quick. Where I was like, that is not that is not real.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think I think when they do that, it messes with the audience a little bit too much,
Mhm.
especially when it doesn't look real. I think maybe down the road, if they're able to really perfect this, maybe my thoughts might feel a little bit different about that. But I think, we have an upcoming Indiana Jones movie, theoretically, at some point. Um,
Yeah. Hmm.
Harrison Ford is old. I mean, that dude, hey, if he can still do it though, I would rather watch an old crotchety Indiana Jones doing whatever he has, he brings his whip, and, even if he's kind of hobbling along or whatever, I would rather see that than them try and put a de-aged face on a younger actor. I would, just because I grew up, one of the first movies I ever saw in the theater was
The
Raiders of the
same.
Lost Ark. And so to see, to have that progression, it's natural. I want to just see him older, and that's fine. And then pass the torch. And I think that's some of it, that figure out a way, have a writers, producers, studios, whatever that is, whoever's in charge or crafting these, to think of some outs, to think of some different creative ways to really pass that torch along and still tell a compelling story that is going to serve, it's going to be meaningful to the fans. Because think about MCU again, because, well, hey, just
I
about
mean, they
everything is
just have a lot
MCU.
of really good examples for a lot of this technology stuff. It's really
Yeah,
so.
but we have Chris Evans passing the torch to Anthony Mackie. Anthony Mackie is now Captain America. Awesome. I totally get behind that. You've taken a character, you've brought them through with Chris Evans. He's reached his end point, and they've passed it. And now we have a brand new hero that we've had some background on, and now can totally root on. We can see new adventures with him. And I think for some of these things, that's outstanding, and that's the great way. And I know that, okay, it is superhero, and so it's a mantle. I mean, it's Captain America. He is still
Mm.
Sam, as Captain America. But I don't know. I think I'm more apt to go with, hey, change the actor, go in a different direction, tell us why,
And
or
narratively, that one makes a lot of sense, right? So I
correct.
mean, yeah, maybe they should do the reverse. They'll just start them young and then age them into the future, and then just slowly do less and less CGI.
Perfect.
So another thing that came out not too long ago, which I really enjoyed, and I saw from your review you really enjoyed too, was the Snyder Cut, right? Which is very different, but because we've used to things like the director's cut, and online, there's a lot of people who make their own edits, right? The Tolkien trilogy and The Hobbit has been combined into what's called, I think, like the Tolkien edition, where they like removed a lot of the they compressed the three Hobbits into one. And then obviously Star Wars has a track record for just keep reimagining. Blade Runner is infamous for having numerous cuts.
Yes, it is.
So what is your thoughts, sort of like, hey, these different versions, these different edits, kind of, especially because now there's these platforms, right? There's these streaming services where you could be like, oh, okay, cool. Here's Blade Runner. Here's all the different versions, right? And here's some new ones. Here's, some extra spicy ones that we created just for the platform. What do you think about doing something like that?
I think I think the directors, if they want to cut it up, if they want to, add some stuff in or maybe take a little bit out or whatever that is, I think they should have the prerogative to do that. And I do think, like Blade Runner, I mean, I don't know how many edits there are, how many cuts of those there are. Um, it- I love it. And I love watching the different versions be like, oh, yeah, that's new or that's different. Um, I think from that perspective, if a director wants to do it, maybe and we know that theatrical cuts typically have studios shy away from really, really long things. And they have their own say in it and say, no, this is how we're going to present it. Okay, cool. But then allowing the director to come back in afterwards and give a director's cut, you know what, totally great. And I think now, because we have streaming platforms, because we have digital platforms, getting these or getting access to these is a little bit easier, and it's a little bit more financially that it makes sense. I think back to when we had VHS stuff, and the I don't know, pick a movie. Let's do Blade Runner. Okay, Blade Runner came out, and then here's the definitive cut, and here's the director's cut, and here's the final cut. And it's like, well, geez, now I have to buy 4 or 5 different versions of this if I want to see them. Or, oh man, I got this one. Stuff like that. That when we have it access to it digitally, totally good. Now, if I think about the Snyder cut, um,
And that's kind of different just because it is a different movie.
yeah, it really is. Yeah, he took control back to
Mm-hmm.
his movie and
Mm-hmm.
presented his vision the way that he wanted to show it. And I think that was the right move. Honestly, before it came out, before I saw it, I was not thrilled.
Yeah,
I
I was the
didn't
same
like
way.
yeah, I didn't like the first one, and I was like, oh well,
How
I'm
much
not
more
really
could they change?
exactly. Well, and
A lot.
whoa, yeah, you've made me care about this. You've given me a central character to really like and to root for. Just yeah, everything about it. So as far as that, to then fan cuts, that gets. I mean, I understand the purpose of it because it's
Mhm.
somebody giving love. It's showing, what, oh my gosh, I love this so much that I do this. I mean, that's how fan fiction comes about.
Mhm.
Any like that. I think. I think to destroy a director's vision, though, or to take that, I mean, I understand, if you're doing it for your personal use, something like that, but then to put it back out into the public space, I do think that that gets a little wonky at times, because now you're it's a different type of criticism. And I think that, what, that's fine, and the director can stand up for that and take that, or whatever. But I think I, i'm less I'm less okay with a fan, me, anybody else, even another filmmaker, taking somebody's work and then chopping it up to do their vision of it. You know what?
Mhm.
Go do your own thing. If you have a vision for something, if you want to make a movie, then do that. Tell your story. And then if you're a fan, or if you're somebody who's just trying to snark on it, well, you're going to find out very quickly about how hard it is to actually put all of these thoughts together, and how to do that. The amount of work from all of the professionals that went into creating this thing, that now you're taking with the luxury of having it all done and just telling your own story for it. Yeah, I'm less thrilled with those types of things.
I wonder if we might see a situation where there is those like like you said, the theatrical cuts, they tend to have a certain, 90 minutes, right? It's the target, so somewhere around there, right? So and with cinemas, like you said, you're not really going all the time. They might be more reserved for like those big events. I think one way they could maybe make some more big events is you basically allow for, like, hey, here's the whatever edition, the director's uncut, the Snyder-esque vision in theaters. And I was watching it, and we were like, yeah, I'd watch this in theaters. I mean, it's 2.5 hours, but it's like a Lord of the Rings kind of a thing where it's like, yeah, you go and you're sitting and you're in there for a while, but it's gonna be an event.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So let's talk about some fun stuff. So one of my favorite shows on Netflix is Black Mirror. And it's for those of you who don't know, it's a show that kind of takes a dark take on technology, on what feels like the not too distant future. Most of the episodes will not make you feel good. There's a few happy ones, surprisingly. So I just wanted for fun. What is probably one thing you've seen in one of the episodes, a technology that was used that kind of really scares you because you think, yeah, this isn't just like a show. Like this is going to happen, or this could definitely happen.
That, oh yeah. Well, I think anytime you get AI or you get robots, just and that encompasses a lot of them. That terrifies me. I mean, we see the dancing robots now. In
Yeah,
in I think it was in Japan, they made a mech,
yeah,
a mech
yeah.
suit.
It's like full
That's
scale.
awesome. Yeah, that terrifies me because at
Terrifying.
some point that bad boy is gonna walk off by itself, and then okay. Um, but I think, gosh, there's an episode. Um, it stars Hannah John Kamen and Wyatt Russell, and they implant something. He believes that he's in a video game, and it's been a while since
Oh
I've seen it.
yes,
And
yes.
he's, it's like a VR type of thing, and it becomes just this nightmare thing. And I believe that at some point he actually dies in it. I don't totally remember, but that one, yeah, I can see kind of that happening a little bit. That we get to a point where we have to up our entertainment level. You know what I mean? We have the VR
Mhm.
headsets now, but what's the next thing where I can see it, I can be part of it. And it's not just VR. It's not just in my head and my my or my ears and my eyes. It's I'm feeling it through my body, and it's
Mhm.
just this visceral experience. Yeah, that okay. End of the world right there, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And that's actually one of the things that made me feel very uncomfortable while watching Bandersnatch, the Black Mirror Bandersnatch, like the special thing where like you could navigate to different choose your own adventures, because I was like, oh well, I'll just kind of mess around with this, and it got too meta. Where suddenly it's like, who are you? I'm on Netflix. It's like, wait, what? Okay, now I'm getting kind of confused, and this thing's talking to me, and I'm like, this is getting too deep.
Yeah. Okay. Did you watch more than one? I mean, did you go through it more than once to make different changes?
I saw a couple, but at a certain point, like there was a lot of repetition, which was kind of like my one criticism. Is like it started to get too repetitive to get to the next thing,
Yeah.
and that was kind of always the case with me in the books, where it'd be like, oh no, I didn't go there, I didn't go there. But the
Totally. Yeah.
films are harder to navigate than the book is.
Definitely.
Okay, cool. Staying on Black Mirror really quick. Do you think that there's something you've seen that's definitely we are either right there at the precipice, you know, next year or two, this is going to happen, or I can scare you and let you know what actually is already happening. So,
Yeah. I think in small ways we're edging closer and closer. Um, I don't think I have a specific example from any one episode, but I do believe that as we as we get more and more smart devices, as we have more and more
mhm,
connectivity, um, and we see people hacking into large scale types of things and gaining access to something that's not just my computer anymore, but it's large infrastructures. I think that's where it becomes really terrifying because we are on that brink of we are closer to the things that we're watching in Black Mirror become a reality than we are farther from them. Yes, there are some that are still a little bit farther out there, and I think those bring me a little bit more comfort, and I think I might enjoy some of those a little bit more because it's less like I can sit there and go, yeah, okay, that's not going to happen for a little bit. I'm okay.
Okay, all right. Well, I won't scare you with some of my findings then. Um, so now there have been movies and TV shows that have crossed platforms all the time, right? The Matrix is an example where they had the movie and there's actually a video game, the Matrix video game, which filled in some narrative that got brought into the film later, some backstory, right? And then since decades ago, they've been doing everything from like, from the small screen on TV, and then it's like, the Care Bears movie, right? Or whatever it is. Do you see, especially right now, because, we have YouTube, all the different social media platforms, we see some of it with like viral marketing. Do you think, and, we have these cinematic universes, these franchise universes, because it's becoming more. Uh, do you see more narratives that are going to be existing where you need to cross these different platforms? Hey, did you read the book? It tells you about this thing. Hey, did you see this video game, this comic? Did you see this on YouTube? Thor posted about his roommate. They mentioned that in the movie, like that kind of thing. What are your thoughts?
I think I think some of that will feel natural. I think some of it will be good. I think what they'll always hedge towards is not making it so exclusive, because they don't want to limit the fan base. I mean, Disney wants as many eyeballs on their product as possible, and so
Mhm.
to make something, if you weren't able to understand something or enjoy it because you didn't read this comic book, or because you're not familiar with this story or this folklore or something like that, um, it makes me less likely to then consume that media and to fall in love with that story. But when they insert little things that super serve those huge fans, that's when you satisfy your regular audience, and then you make your hardcore super fans even more dedicated and even more just they absolutely love it. And so I think having ties with that is going to reinforce it. But I would be shocked if from TV to movies or movie to TV, if they put in other requirements that um, that prevent you from watching and enjoying. I think loved X Files, and so I remember we it was an event when the first X Files movie came out,
Mm-hmm. Right.
um, and I think so for fans of the show, we were there like eating it all up. But I think they gave enough ish background development to kind of put you into this. But I'm not sure that they did enough that it made for any just general audience member to want to go and feel like they had just an all immersive experience and that they understood everything that was going on. Um,
Do
I
you
mean,
think
it,
it made any of them be like, "Oh, I like this movie. I should probably watch the show"? Do you think had the reverse effect, which is kind of the hope, right? That people will go
I
see the old stuff.
I think to a degree that does happen, um, because people, you think about, well, just let's take Marvel because it's easy because there's so many stinking movies in the franchise there that if you didn't watch from the first one, maybe you came on at Doctor Strange and you enjoyed that, and then you watched the next movie, or you came in on Infinity War, and you're
Mhm.
like, well, hey, I kind of got into this. I like this a little bit. So yeah, I think then them going back and watching some of the show, some of the movies to really catch up to get engaged more into the world. I think that does happen, and I think that does have the potential. I think though that the studios, the writers, they always hedge towards giving you enough information so that if you haven't seen it, that you can enjoy it and still feel like you walked away with a well-rounded story.
It's hilarious that you mentioned Doctor Strange because this exact example happened. My father watched Infinity War, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't even know Doctor Strange was a part of the Marvel stuff, right?" And so he's like, "I gotta go see that movie now," because he's like, he didn't know it was related. So
That's funny. And so and so that it just, I think it does work that way, for these people who are casual fans. And I think that's really
sure.
where it is, that it works for any of the casual fans who they get hooked, they get intrigued, maybe a little curious of just like, oh, well, maybe I'll see what else this is about. I like this thing, so I might like this one.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, Chris, it's been a real delight. I've really enjoyed talking about movies and how it all just overlaps with technology. It's super cool stuff. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is a great discussion. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again. Um, Everybody, thank you for watching. If you would like to follow Chris, I'll leave his details down in the description box below. Um, Chris, thanks again, and have a good night, everybody. Bye bye.